Okay, we're live now.
Okay, so we're just here at Darlene Krikau's studio, and we're waiting a little bit to have people tune in. And you can say, Darlene, just say hi so that we know if people can hear us. And if you're tuning in right now, just feel free to let us know if the sound is good. And there's, what's your name? Sophie.
Josie was standing a little close to her bed.
She's like, I'm just going to move this one.
Do you want to ask people to comment if they can hear?
Yeah, if you're tuning in right now, could you just comment and let me know if you can hear me and
me.
Yeah, like this.
Alex Thiessen says, I can hear you, Nicole.
Oh, thank you, Alex. Nice to have you join us. Hi, Sophie. Yeah, so we're just going to wait a little bit.
You're good to go, I would say.
Are we?
Got about 10 people.
Okay,
watching.
awesome. Good morning and welcome everyone to our first morning studio sessions, which is pretty exciting. We are here at Darlene Krikau's farm and Farm Girl Pottery. Is that okay? You might know her by that. And we are so excited because we want to hear about the work that Darlene does and see what she's working on and check out her space. Events like this would not be possible without, but actually I was going to thank our sponsors, but Josie, I want you to show our viewers what this great space is. Like, maybe start with Sophie, who's getting mad at you.
Yeah, Sophie doesn't like that I'm...
She says, get away from my side. So I just want to thank our sponsors that make studio sessions possible. We'll start with Affinity Credit Union, Rosthern Agencies, Funk's Funeral Home, Town of Rosthern, Sask Arts, the Department of Canadian Heritage, Sask Culture, Sask Lotteries, and of course the Organization of Saskatchewan Arts Councils. So thank you so much to everyone who makes these kind of events possible and allows us to come visit our friends and artists and see what they're doing. So, Darlene, now that everyone's had a look at your beautiful space, I just wanted to say that I love, it's undergoing renovation.
We're a work in progress. That's my garage that we didn't use a great deal, so Chad said, let's convert it into a space for you so we can move some of this stuff into one spot. So it's been awesome.
The best part of it is all this natural light. It's amazing, and I can only imagine on a sunny day how wonderful it is. So when we first got here, we were just talking a little bit about where your pottery and ceramic work began, which is great. I want you to talk a little bit about this little, I'm going to switch spots with you. Okay.
So I have always been a pottery collector, but I've never considered myself an artist by nature. I'm a physics teacher and a chemistry teacher, and I really like science. I like Star Trek. Art has never been a strong point for me. But I took a pottery class through the station. Nicole had a local potter come out and teach a class. And so that was my intro into creating pottery. I've always collected it when I traveled for the last 20 or so years, and I just love it. Nothing feels better to me than a coffee and a pottery mug. So getting into creating it was through the station arts, and it was amazing. I was a hand building class. And then a few years later, I took a wheel throwing class, and that, for me, it was just, it warmed my heart because I love symmetry, and I love the feel and the motion, and I just love everything about it. So this is the first piece I ever threw on the wheel, and it's as heavy as a paperweight, but I'm particularly proud of it. The inside is about an inch thick over here and almost right through to the bottom there, but it's to me such a humbling piece because it represents a beginning. It's where I started, so I display it always in my home, and I'm really proud of it.
Yeah, let's show them as well on the bottom. Okay, so she has Dar on the bottom, and a lot of you know this, but this is how we always find out who made the piece. You look on the bottom, and they'll have their stamp or signature there. I think that's a great,
2017.
can I hold it to see how heavy
Absolutely.
it is? I love that. That makes me feel better because this is how any pottery pieces I've done. Yours is a lot nicer than mine.
This was the hardest part of throwing pottery is making a nice tall wall. So I got it to here and it started to slump inward. And I was like, oh, I better stop there. So I tried to shape it and make it into
You're like,
something.
this is a peanut bowl that doubles as a paperweight.
That's right. Stop.
That's
It could be any of those. However, I just usually display it.
Oh, I think that's a.
I love it. It's
Yeah.
my favorite piece.
So that's when you started out, and that was in 2014.
2014 was the hand building class.
Right.
And 2017 is when I took that wheel class.
So, okay, so this is what I love about visiting you here because it makes me feel like there's hope for all of us to begin a new career or start the art that you always wanted to try. You just started it so not very long ago at all.
No,
And it's taken over your life.
it does. I wake up thinking about it and I go to sleep thinking about it, and it's not something I ever thought I would do. I took an art class again through you with some artist friends, and it was a painting class and a printmaking class and a sketching, and my friends are all beautiful artists and they made these amazing paintings and prints, and they're very kind and I love them very much, but they were like, you are really good at following directions. Because my art was not very good.
I seem to remember you did that. I know what you're
You're
saying,
just very
right?
good.
Yeah. But it's like you like to follow.
I like math,
Right.
because you do this, and then you do this, and then you do this, and art is so free thinking.
And yet, with pottery, and you focus a lot, we can look at some of this after, but on functional wear.
I am almost primarily functional.
Right, and I think that's really cool that you've sort of like honed in on what makes sense to you and just kind of run with it, and now you're crazy busy with it.
I love it. It's wonderful.
Well, let's take a look maybe at some of the equipment that you use for
Absolutely.
the process
For sure.
that you go through for.
For sure. So, this is a slab roller, which is essentially
Can you hold it closer to her? The mic.
a great big rolling pin. So I can move these pins upward or downward, and there are two rollers that will send clay through, and that allows me to create things like that plate right there. It ensures a consistent thickness, because if pottery is inconsistent in its thickness, it doesn't dry nicely, and sometimes you'll get big cracks in it. So this prevents that. In hindsight, it's a miracle that my paperweight first wheel thrown item survived the firing, because the kiln will take it up to a really high temperature. If it's not a really well compacted, really stable piece, cracking is likely, if not inevitable. So this allows me to avoid that for hand-built pieces.
Oh, that's cool. Explosions have been known to happen in kilns. I know that firsthand. So yes, like you're saying, it's the inconsistencies in the
That is
thickness.
a problem.
Right, okay. So this is a super cool giant,
Rolling pin.
can I do a
Absolutely,
little
I
press
just
here?
bring it down.
So we would be like rolling all that clay through on top of
You
this
bet.
piece of canvas.
Right inside, right between these two pieces of canvas, I would put a piece of clay right between these two pieces of canvas, and I won't roll it to the final thickness immediately. I'm going to start with if I put a piece of clay this thick in there, I'll start by rolling it down to here, then down to here, then down to here. And what that creates is a nice even compaction of the clay, because clay is molecular, and you want to see a nice, smooth, evenly distributed final piece, so that those molecules are nicely aligned and nicely in order, so that you can avoid the cracking and the breaking.
Can you use this for Christmas baking?
Oh, I would love to. Those sugar cookies you could roll out.
I know, this is the answer that I'm waiting for. Okay.
So when I had ordered it, I had meant to order just a small one, because I thought I'm not going to need a gigantic one, and it came and I was like, this is massive. But I think that was fate, because I love it. I use it all the time. And I'm so glad I got the giant one.
Yeah, okay, so this is often when you're doing stuff like hand building.
Trays and plates primarily.
Okay, let's move this direction. I'm gonna follow you.
You bet.
And then I'll
So
stand.
this is is my wedging table. So when I am throwing pottery specifically, I would break off, sorry for the noise, I break off or cut off a piece of this clay. And when I'm throwing mugs, I like the initial piece of clay to be 1.5 pounds, which is about this big. But I have a scale downstairs and I weigh it out. And then,
I'm just gonna go on your other side there.
absolutely, you kind of knead the clay into a nice little ball. So I want it has no air bubbles when it's in the bag. It's gone through something called a pug mill. And that takes out the air bubbles and compacts it. So I just want to make it a nice ball because you can't throw a square lump very easily. So once I've got all the air bubbles out, I pat it into a nice little ball and it's ready to throw.
That is so satisfying. That cut is so satisfying. So satisfying. Awesome. And so then that goes onto your wheel.
Onto my wheel. And from that amount of clay I can get about 15 mug bodies. Not handles, but mug bodies.
Okay, now I'm just gonna, before we move to the wheel, I just want to show, oops, sorry. I just want to show you this plate when we were talking about the slab roller. And then this is a beautiful imprint of a doily.
A doily that my Baba had made, and I don't put the doily on the clay when I run it through the slab roller. I just take a rolling pin and roll it into there just to get an even impression of it.
Right, and so then you press in that doily, and then when you do a glaze, like this is a really transparent kind of
very much so. So this, I used this one for the pink. So I brush it on, I wipe it all back so that all that's left is the glaze and the grooves.
Right.
And then I go over it with an opaque white glaze.
Oh wow, okay, that's really cool. So this is the, I guess we would call it sort of hand building portion.
Yeah, that's the
right?
hand building part.
Okay, now I'm going to, are you going to move this to the wheel now?
I have another one that's prepared.
Oh, look. This is like a big cooking show. It's like you just move to the next station now. Josie, I want you to be able to, I'm going to stand maybe behind Darlene. So she can talk. And you can peek over the splatter shield.
The splatter shield is 3 windows that came from the Hague Lutheran Church.
Awesome.
My husband Chad grew up going to the Hague Lutheran Church, and they were doing some remodeling there. And I was able to snag the windows. So I have a greenhouse outside that's made of them. And I have 3 left. I was trying to make a splatter guard for in here. And so my son and I put this together.
That's so great.
So usually I throw on something called a bat, which is a piece of MDF with holes drilled in. I don't usually throw right onto the wheel head, but all my bats, I've just this moment realized, are downstairs with mugs on them drying. So we're going to try throwing on the wheel head.
So the bat is basically a wood platform, so that once you've got something on it, you just take it.
I can take it off. You bet. I can take it off. I have a little plastic greenhouse downstairs that I can monitor the humidity of, so that things don't dry too fast. Because if they dry too fast, they tend to crack. If they dry too slowly, then they're mud for a very long time. But I can kind of keep track of how it's drying and then open it up if it needs to dry quicker, if it's too slow, close it up if it's too fast. But all my bats are down there. So the reason I don't throw directly onto the wheel head, and many people do, is because moving clay that's wet, have to cut it off and move that mug while it's still wet will likely, in my case, result in disaster. So having the bat allows me to not touch that wet clay. Okay. So
Get ready for the magic.
you know, I don't know if it's going to be magical because I don't throw on a bat.
I love
It
the
could be
pressure.
disastrous.
That's so much pressure on you.
And that's okay. I'm okay with disaster. Look at this.
I'm under construction. So just as you're getting started, Josie, you can stay focused on here, but it was fun because we were talking earlier, Darlene, that you used to run a lot.
I did.
And then had a little bit of some injuries. And you were saying that doing pottery now instead gives you that same endorphin rush.
I do. I used to run a lot, and it was a great way. I'd run first thing in the morning, and it would sort out my brain, and I have a lot energy at times, and it would just focus that energy so that I could be productive during the day. And when I wasn't able to run so much anymore, I struggled. It was like mentally, I was kind of all over the place. But doing this in addition to running, so that I don't put all that stress on my injured parts, has been really good. It was a knee injury, and it's hard to recover from.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I am centering the clay. So the clay needs to be nicely in the center of the wheel, because if it's not, you're going to have a lumpy piece and you can't properly throw it.
Yeah.
So this centers the clay.
P.S. For those at home, this is like the hardest thing in the world.
I know you're making it look so easy.
Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pieces to be able to effectively center. So I dig my elbow into my hip and use this hand is doing most of the centering. So I push with this hand, guide with this hand, and if my hands get too dry, I torque the wheel. So there's some physics, right?
Yeah.
I torque the clay, and then I end up with a lopsided piece. And I have a plant, it's in my house, that's in a piece I torqued. So it was shaping up to be a mug, and then I torqued it, so it kind of shifted about 45 degrees and flopped.
Okay.
And it actually turned out quite beautiful, so I turned it into a planter. So center the clay, and I open up the clay. And opening up the clay creates that nice inside. And the danger in opening the clay, I have learned many, many times, can be that you open up too far and whoop, all of a sudden your finger's at the bottom and your mug is now a planter.
Right.
Because it's got a hole in the bottom. So I'm opening up the clay. Now it's a little bowl.
Oh, that's so satisfying.
I run my sponge down here just to compress. Compression is a really important part of a stable mug bottom, bowl bottom, plate bottom. So the fellow I took my throwing class from has these long, beautiful hands that could reach into a tall mug and pull it up, but I don't have that. So I've had to improvise and learn some different techniques. I'm just going to move my head over here.
Yep.
So super important to pull consistently. Consistent pressure on the inside and outside. Oh, I can feel a little bubble in there. Consistent speed. I find after I pull it a time or two, I slow my wheel down a bit. You see how it's got a little wobble in there? I felt a bubble right about here. Oh, look, right there. So while I was wedging this clay, I didn't wedge it quite enough, and I got a little bubble of air in there.
So would you start
No,
over, or you can work it out?
there was a time, yes, I would have to start over, but now I can get rid of that bubble. I've got a little pin tool. I can get rid of that bubble, and I take my wire and I cut off the lopsidedness of it. Yeah. And often I can get that bubble out. I have learned how to wedge well enough and consistently enough now that I seldom get bubbles, but they do still happen. So
that is so fun to watch.
Yeah, it's so fun. We can cut it off of here. If you can maybe reach back there and grab me that cutting wire.
I can.
Sorry, I should have brought it with me. I'm going to just cut this top off. Here we go. Pull it out a bit. So I like to pull it to whatever shape I like, and for me that shape is wider bottom, slightly narrower on the inside, slightly wider on top. So I would spend a minute maybe just getting that shape to where I like. There we go. Then I compress the rim. And compressing the rim ensures there are no cracks in it. And the piece is my favorite piece. The mug I use every morning for my coffee, I have kept because there's a little crack in the rim because I didn't compress it enough.
Oh, yeah.
It was one I made quite a long time ago, and I hadn't learned the importance of compression at that point. So here I would take this little pin tool, which when I used to teach biology was my dissection painter. And I would then cut it off my bat.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, so using this little pin tool to kind of get rid of some of the clay down here just makes it much easier when I'm
So
going
satisfying.
to... So satisfying. When I'm going to trim this, so when I'm going to clean up the ends after it's dried, usually for a day or two, if I've cleaned up this big chunk of clay around here already, I can get a nicer, cleaner finish quicker.
Yeah.
So that's a very nice...
Thank you for showing us that demo. That is just,
so
it's
fun.
so relaxing to watch.
It makes me so happy.
But it does. And I also know how much, it's like I was saying, it's not easy to center things.
She makes it look so easy that I'm like,
Well,
I want to go home and start doing pottery.
You make it look super easy. I'm like, I have a collection of ashtrays at home that I made.
So that first one looks like a pinch pot ashtray that every child in 1984 made for Father's Day, and I was one of those children.
Oh, okay. Josie, I'll let you get a little shot of this, and then I'm going to walk out.
Sure, I'll let you go up.
Okay.
So after 2 days, I would then put a handle on this mug, and I have a little tool that will cut clay into a nice long strip. You can use an extruder, like a cookie press extruder, or I have a specific handle pottery tool that cuts the handle, but then I have to pull it. So I just take my hand and I make it a little longer, stretch it out a bit, and then I will choose 2 points to attach it to. And when I'm ready to attach it, I will take this Delta room key. It's very technical at times doing pottery.
I love it.
And I will score. This mug. It will be drier, not totally dry, but it will be drier so that it doesn't warp. So I'm going to make these little scores where the handle's going to go. And then I'm going to put something called slip on there, which is a thin clay. So I'll put that thin clay that's almost like paint on there, and then I will attach my handles, and that slip essentially glues them together. And I make the slip by taking these shavings. Anything I trim off of there, I crush it up once it's dry, and I pour vinegar into it. And that acetic acid breaks down that clay into a nice slurry and makes a really nice glue paste.
Right. Well, okay, now I just wanted to, I think it's over here on that display shelf. I saw that you also use slip are you using slip to do your designs?
No,
Okay.
This actually, both these pieces belong to a friend of mine. And these were her first attempts at hand-built pottery. She came over one day in summer and made some pottery with me. Down here, I think this is the cutest thing ever. My daughter makes these little fairy houses.
Oh.
And she got a COVID hamster, and this is her homage to her COVID hamster.
Oh, so cute.
So I have people who are important to me who come here and will spend time in here with me and build.
That is so, I love that.
It is wonderful. I also love it.
Now, I know we're getting tight for time, but I just want to quickly touch on the glazes, because
Certainly.
we've got this glazing chart, I'm going to call it. And what I've noticed about your work is that you are fearless with using contemporary colors, bright glazes, and experimenting, I think, a lot with those finishes that you don't always see in pottery. And I think it's very attractive to a lot of people right now. And I think it's your science knowledge that makes you, it's like this comes naturally to you, when for the rest of us, working on the glazes can be quite daunting because it's pure chemistry, correct?
So, very, very chemistry. The kiln and everything about it is pure thermodynamics, which I love almost as much as I love Newton and physics. But I don't know if it's science so much for me as it is outside. I want to feel like I'm outside when I'm not outside, because I love being outside and I love being We have a little cottage up north. I love going there. So I want colors that make me feel like I'm outside. And pink is my favorite color, so I like that one too. But most of the pottery I keep for myself fits into the blue palette, just because it's just so home and calming, and makes me feel like I'm in my yard or I'm up north on the lake. So that's what I want my pottery to make you feel like. I want you to feel like you're outside in the sunshine.
Well, and I like, you can notice too how the different glazes behave depending on how you've mixed them up, right? You've got like a metallic sheen. Is that like
These break.
Okay.
This is called a breaking glaze.
Sorry.
So when I glaze it onto a piece, it's actually kind of a burnished red color. And once it fires, it breaks into a brown and a blue for that one specifically. And this one it's called ancient copper, and it breaks into a coppery, shiny copper and a copper matte, which is super cool.
Yeah.
And these are all food safe, they're all microwave safe, they're all dishwasher safe, they're all oven safe. And the reason I know that is because I try them in my oven and my microwave and my dishwasher and my freezer, because functionality is so important for me. If it can't go in my dishwasher, then I don't want it in my house.
Okay, now I'm gonna walk over this way. You can see Darlene's kiln that she has here. And it almost looks decorative, like industrial chic.
Right.
That's what's happening
So
here.
it has just had its 97th load go through it.
Just go closer a little bit.
It's got this beautiful little computer in it that keeps track of temperatures. So for the first firing, when I fire from a raw clay, which is essentially mud, I could dig clay out of my yard and use it to throw. It gets fired to 1,945 degrees Fahrenheit, and it becomes this glassy, becomes a hard substance that isn't fragile mud anymore.
Right.
Then I put the glaze on. I don't glaze the bottom because my first teacher, Denise, who was very wise, said never do that because it'll fuse to the kiln. And I've inadvertently done that, and it does, in fact, fuse to the kiln. But for the second firing, it gets fired to 2,167 degrees Fahrenheit. So when people ask me...
Sorry, stop. Technical problem.
We just had
That one, yeah. Okay, just apologize for that. Josie just collapsed there for a second. We may have lost her, but we're back.
She's okay.
If everyone can hear us. Yeah, can you hear us?
So when I'm just going to pick up right where I left off. When it goes in for its second firing, it gets to such a high temperature. So when people ask me if it can go into their oven, it can go into their dishwasher, it can go into their microwave, the answer is unequivocally yes, because it's already been in something much hotter than any of those things. So pretty awesome.
That is awesome. I'm just kidding. Josie didn't collapse there. I just thought it was funnier if she maybe did. At the end here, and we probably only have another minute or so to talk, but I wanted to end up at this beautiful table here. I'm going to set the microphone here. I think you can still hear us. This is a mug that you have done as a collaboration. And can you just tell us a little bit about this?
So this mug is now part of a series of 2 years worth of mugs that I did with online content creator Meredith Deanne. And she had a surgery on her heart. So heart health is near and dear to her, and my family has experienced some heart health issues, so it's also very near and dear to me. We created this heart mug. It's part of the Cozy collection, the Meredith Deanne Lifestyle Cozy collection. Last year's was white on top with a little pink heart on the bottom, and this year it's on speckled clay. So $2.50 from every mug in this series sold goes to the Heart and Stroke Foundation. So I'm hoping to get to about $500 this year, $500.
Wow, that's great.
With the previous collection. So this is an important little piece to me.
Oh, and this is just now released, correct?
This is released for a January delivery date because it's been really busy with Christmas orders, which I very much appreciate. However, I don't want to not get someone a piece before Christmas that they're expecting, because that would be...
That's right.
That'd be very hard for me to do. Right over there is my favorite, my favorite new piece.
Can I pull it over?
But I think everyone is my favorite.
Yes.
This is one that that takes me right up north, and for that reason, I love it so much.
I love that you were just telling me earlier that your friend, like a good friend, was like, oh my, I just bought this amazing mug and check it out. And then you were like, did you bother looking at the bottom? So it says Dar on the bottom, and so she had
just
inadvertently.
Didn't realize it was me that she had been following.
That's so great.
She was like, oh. Huh.
And if you look closely on here, I love how your glaze is applied in sort of a layered way, and you omit sort of an area here.
So this is, the glaze right here is a little bit thinner than everywhere else, just because I want those trees to be highlighted.
Yeah.
So when this is 3 coats over here, this is 1. And so that it gets that color differentiation.
And the trees are impressed.
No,
right?
they're not actually. They're
it feels like okay.
They're a stencil that I made.
Oh, great.
I have a Cricut, so I cut out a little stencil and I put them right on the bisqueware. After the first firing, I just glaze them right onto there with the stencil.
Right on. I love
You're
it.
getting lots of love for the heart mugs and the tree mug.
Amazing.
Heather says, oh, that snow back home.
So Heather, I assume that's Heather Grismer.
Yeah.
Heather is one of my favorite people to send pottery seconds to. Heather does not want a perfect piece of pottery. She wants the one where the handle isn't applied correctly or there's a crack in it, so I send her all of those and she just gives them all the love.
Oh, that's awesome.
Those are also the ones I keep.
Oh, that's so great. Well, now if people want to find your work online.
What about questions, maybe?
Oh, yeah, I guess. Well, we can do both. Does anyone at home have questions right now? Something you want to know about work that Dara is doing? I'll just.
You can keep talking.
Okay. And if we want to find some of your stuff online, it's Farm Girl Pottery.
sk.ca.
Okay. So I guess I'll say don't load you up with too many Christmas orders.
Christmas ordering is done.
Christmas is over.
January,
Guys.
Christmas is over.
Yeah, start thinking of a New Year gift.
Last year on Christmas Eve, I was still having people come by to pick pottery up because I'd pulled it out of the kiln that morning, and I'd like to avoid that this year.
Right, I love it. That's so great. And it's been so nice for us to come and be able to spend time in your space. I've been actually really looking forward to it. I love it when people are like, yeah, we're just kind of renovating it right now and it's not going to be great. I'm like, that is exactly what I want to see.
This is what it is.
It's so inspiring. And I was thinking myself, for those of us who, sometimes you dream of trying a different art form or getting into it and kind of making a little bit of a leap and taking it a bit more serious. Well, obviously it's fun, but you're taking it seriously, as in getting all the equipment. You're a complete inspiration. And
thank you for starting me on this path.
I forgot that was even a possibility, but I appreciate the credit, where it's probably not due, but that's awesome. And Darlene, you've also helped us out over the years at the station doing Pesanka,
yeah, Ukrainian Easter eggs.
I totally butchered that.
You did a great job. That was excellent.
So we've learned a lot from you over the years, and I really look forward to a lot more, whether it's courses, workshops, collaborations. It's so exciting.
Oh, me too. It's so much fun. It's been, this little pocket we live in is such a great community. The support that I've had from people who maybe I don't even know very well has just been amazing. They'll message me on Facebook and say, I have packing material for you. Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. I love it.
I have a room in the basement full of packing material for Christmas.
I think all of us are happy to help get your stuff out there because
people are
we
so
all
kind.
love it.
People are so kind.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Well, thanks so much.
Thank you.
And thanks to everyone who tuned in today. It's been really fun to do this in the morning. So we'll see you soon. Stay safe and see you another time.